So today I'd like to talk about the types of chemical reactions. They're pretty simple. I'm going to go through them rather quickly because there's a ton of better videos than me online that go through these. The first one I'd like to talk about is a synthesis reaction. The word synthesize means to produce, and you can identify these because they only have one product. So you have one chemical plus another chemical combines to produce, to combine together to make one product. And you can identify those because they have usually two or more reactants and one product. Here's my example of a synthesis reaction. It's like a lion plus a tiger equals a liger, or a cat plus a dog equals cat dog. And if you never saw this cartoon, don't worry, you're not missing out too much. It was a terrible cartoon in the 90s. A second type of reaction is a decomposition reaction. This means to decompose means you're going to break apart. So we take a substance and it breaks apart into two different things. So one chemical breaks apart into two or more different things. And you can identify these because they always have one reactant. They're basically the opposite of a synthesis reaction. I've got Batman and Robin come up to the scene together, and then they jump out, decompose into Batman alone and Robin alone. Third type of reaction is a single replacement reaction. A single replacement reaction happens when a single metal replaces another one in a compound. Um, this might be something like copper is added to aluminum chloride or something like that. And you can identify these because there is an atom alone and a compound, and it makes a new atom and a new compound. I want to point out to you that sometimes the numbers here will change depending on what's being formed together. And my single replacement reaction example is a classic from the movie or the book's Twilight. They kind of switched people here. If you never read the books, I suggest you do if you are looking for some mindless entertainment. The last type of replacement reaction is a double replacement reaction. This is where we have two metals represented by A and C, and they switch places with each other. So A gets with D and C gets with B over here. And you can identify this because two compounds are going to make two new compounds. Now remember, again, if you've got any subscripts, like let's say you have a subscript there for C2D, you don't necessarily have to have that 2 here. That doesn't have to happen. It doesn't carry through if you've changed the combination. So remember that. This is why we have to balance equations with coefficients. Here's my double replacement example. I always say that I have someone here that's not following the dress code at Troy High, but we have two people, two different people, and they switched partners. That's why sometimes this reaction is called the do-si-do reaction, because they will switch partners along the way. Now, the last type of chemical reaction looks a little different than the other four, and this is a combustion reaction. And in a combustion reaction, we have an organic compound reacts with oxygen to form carbon dioxide and water. And honestly, this is how you recognize it. It's always with oxygen and forms carbon dioxide and water. Now, what is an organic compound? An organic compound contains C's and H's for sure, like CH4 or something like that, and sometimes also contains O's. Sometimes we have organic compounds that are called alcohols. So you could recognize combustion reactions by seeing the reaction with oxygen producing CO2 and water. Now I'd like you to take a minute to practice. So pause the video, take a look at these reaction types, and see if you can determine which reaction they are. And here's the answers. Number 1 is a double replacement reaction. Number 2 is combustion. Number 3 is a single replacement reaction. Number 4, again, a double replacement reaction. Number 5 is synthesis. And number 6 is decomposition. And you can tell those by following all the tips that I gave earlier.